Welcome back. We're here at, well, damn near the end of day 2, and it has been a really exciting day. Axslav, we have seen we've seen upsets, you could say, back and forth. We've seen a lot more 3-0s, but we've also seen some really close, intense series, and we've seen, unfortunately, quite a few eliminations today as well.
We have some players, some of the favorites, like Marine King, dropping on the round of 32 to very convincing play by Joxi. And then there's other players you would expect to go on who have, like, Flash. So
right.
with this pool of talent we have here, though, nobody is safe in any single match.
Yep, you're right. And our next match coming up is going to feature 2 Terrans. Of course, Terran predominantly strong this tournament. Whether that is a mental thing or whether that is an actual game thing, I think there's a little bit of both. I think they sort of play into one another. But Bomber versus Taeja, really, I expect this game to entertain.
I really think it will. TVT is, there's usually a lot of different action. There's back and forth drops. One of the cool things about TVT is if a player makes a mistake, they don't instantly lose most of the time.
Sure.
So they have a chance to make a comeback. And watching a player make a comeback is sometimes the most interesting part of StarCraft 2.
I agree. We're going to talk more about these players in just a second, but before we do, don't forget there's a lot of stuff going on here around the MLG 2013 Winter Championship event. One of those, you can get yourself a free QCK Plus mouse pad when you buy the Sensei MLG edition. It's just a $19.90 value. Get on top of that. Just check out MLG.2/Steel Series Bundle to get in on that running throughout the MLG event. Also, some other great things. You could take 50% off orders on gunners.com along with free shipping. Just use the apply code MLG Dallas at checkout. That's for the U.S. only, but you can check those out again through the duration of the competition. Now let's get back to the focus, which is this TVT. Let's talk a little bit about our first competitor, that of course being Bomber.
Bomber is one of those guys who he always makes a top placement in every tournament he plays in. He hasn't won too many events, but he's always in a top 4, top 2, top 3, something like that. He actually qualified for this event by getting into that top 4 in the last Dallas event in November.
Right.
Very, very strong, extremely macro-focused Terran player.
And, you know, Bomber also, if people say that he lived up to his name with nukes, we're starting to see him explore other bombing-like capabilities in Heart of the Swarm. But he is always a player that's excited me because he has brought, you know, new things to the game, innovation and his own way of thinking. And with, you know, a lot of the Terrans out there being unique, I think lets you stand apart. So he did qualify from Dallas, like you said, and that meant that he automatically got a free pass into this and didn't have to go through that really rough road. But he still has shown why he deserves to be here just with his initial wins during the Winter Championship.
Definitely, I think the highlight that I've seen from him so far in this tournament is that game versus Ghost user where he launched all the Seekers at his own medevac, used Ignite Afterburners, ran over Ghost user's army, and then, of course, the Seekers.
So awesome.
I mean, the medevac went down. Unfortunately, that pilot, hopefully they bailed out before they hit, but the entire Zerg army pretty much got blown up as well.
Well, he might earn the name Suicide Terran if he continues to use that, but it was highly effective. And here is his opponent, Liquid Taeja. And Taeja, you know, I love his story, the way that he sort of came out of nowhere. He was, of course, competing in a lot of the community-based tournaments to make a name for himself. He was picked up by Team Liquid, and then he started really winning events. Like, this was a guy that people were scared of. And recently, he has had some issues regarding, you know, wrists, as we often hear from and I believe he had some shoulder issues as well, but he's a great player, and I expect nothing but fireworks this game.
I mean, yeah, people talk about his wrist, but look at those results.
I know.
Multiple first-place finishes. You can't say he's had too many problems winning, regardless of whatever wrist problems he has. He's also so awesome to see a player strive outside of a Korean team. So often we see Korean players leave that Korean team house and environment, ESF house or Pro League house, and join a foreign team. Sometimes they stay with the houses, but sometimes the results slip up. Taeja's have only accelerated from that Team Liquid environment, which is really exciting to see.
Right, good point. And we're starting, ladies and gentlemen. Our first map is going to be on Daybreak, and we've got a best of 5, some TVT action for you. I was just talking to you actually before, and I said I haven't seen a TVT yet this tournament, but you did cast the MKP versus Jiaqi match, which of course was a 3-0 in favor of Jiaqi. But what have you seen, even in the showdown, that we're seeing new from Heart of the Swarm and also, in TVT? And I'll let you think about that. Let's introduce our players, and then I'll re-ask the question. Here in the southwest position as the Red Terran, we're going to find out if he's going to drop any, but ladies and gentlemen, give it up. It is Bomber. And in the northeast position as the Blue Terran, he's had a crazy road in his StarCraft 2 career, but finding a nice home at Team Liquid, it is Taeja. So I go back to my question, axslav. What kind of new things have you seen out of Terrans in Heart of the Swarm, specifically in TVT?
Well, what's interesting to me is that even though they've given Mech a lot of extra options, Widow Mines to help prevent Marauders from charging the siege tank lines, Hellbats for more durability, and of course the Ravens are much more versatile in the late game, and the Mech upgrades help air as well with the armor. So if you're making that late game air transition. So at first I thought I'd see a lot of Mech play, but what I'm seeing is that people are really sticking with Marine tank very heavily. And I've talked to a couple top Terrans about this, and they say it's so hard to play Mech against Ignite Afterburners early on in the game. If you get 3 bases stabilized, you're in a really dominant position to transition into late game. You're going to be very far ahead. But it's so hard to take that 3rd base because a couple missile turrets, the medevacs just fly over them. Before missile turrets stop the medevac drop, now it doesn't on its own anymore. So we may see these players go Mech on a map like Daybreak perhaps, but in general, really heavy draw plays is what I've noticed. Yeah, which of course also is a delicate balance of offense and defense when you could be getting dropped at the same time you are dropping. But I think that's also what makes it kind of an exciting thought in the future of TVT. Now, big difference here that we are seeing almost immediately is the fact that Bomber, after placing his racks, did begin his gas. He's already pulled about 70 out of there. We're going to find out exactly what his plans are going to be. With that, 2 Marines coming out, so it's likely just to be of a really fast factory, but that SCV from Taeja going to be kicked out, evicted by Bomber. It's going to be Taeja with the fast command center. This is kind of a similar theme to actually I saw in the Jiaqi versus Marine King series, with Jiaqi always opening with a relatively fast expansion, Marine King trying to put on a lot of pressure early, and Jiaqi was always able to defend that pressure because what he'd do is right after his expansion, he would go get his own gases up and get defensive Widow Mine, defensive Viking, and then defensive Siege Tank. And one big change in HOTS is that the Siege Tanks start with the Siege mode now. Right. So even if you have only a few units, 1 bunker and 1 Siege Tank can pretty much hold off an infinite opposing Terran army.
I always thought that change was just going to, to me immediately, I'm like, that wrecks the game. Like, it's just going to be Siege Tanks everywhere and early. But really, it hasn't had as huge of an impact as I thought it was going to have. Curious to see, like you had mentioned, some of the dynamics that can change in TVT. But we have the starport going down. We have a reactor here on the racks. But as a result of that early gas, Bomber's now taken both of those geysers. And Taeja, he's about to finish up with his initial gas. Of course, he adds on the 2 racks behind that. So what is the plan? I mean, it looks like it's just going to be Marine Widow Mine pressure, but with the medevac, he could potentially mix up his attacks a little bit, attack from the front, drop in the back. A lot of options.
Definitely a lot of options with the draw play. One thing we saw in a different matchup, but we saw MVP do against Feast is even if the frontal defense is strong, in the case of the Protoss with Photon Overcharge, in this case it's Taeja with the bunker in the front, and even if they have their main mineral line covered with the Marines, if you can put the Widow Mines on the ramp and then you can isolate one of the bases, then you can drop your Marines like in their natural, and their forces in the main, they can't get to the natural without taking substantial losses. So Bomber's going to be looking to put on some pressure with this Widow Mine Marine combination. This isn't going to end the game. He's going to try to get cost-efficient trades, force Taeja to be spending all of his energy on mules, and then, of course, the follow-up could be, looks like it might be either a Raven Siege Tank push or perhaps Cloak Banshee. And, I mean, I'd love to see some sort of a Raven Siege Tank push. And here we go in the main base. We do have 1 Widow Mine on top of the ramp. He's going to drop the Marines. Oh my God, are they going to fund in the radius? They're just outside the radius, axslav. So, a couple do get hit, but manage to stay alive. There's another
Widowmine here, but it's on recharge. There's the scan. He'll be able to take both those out, and he does. But the medevac back inside the main. Not huge losses here by Taeja. He's reacting quite well.
Reacting very well there. The one scan taking out 2 Widowmines, perhaps a little bit of mispositioning by Bomber. Maybe should have lifted one of those up and moved it over a little bit. Bomber gets a little bit of damage done, but he really wanted to get a lot more damage done. Can he do substantially more with his Banshee follow-up? And the other thing to consider is he's going to have a tank advantage, but what can he do with that when Taeja has the economy of so much faster, as well as that attack upgrade already on the way, combat shield's done. His Bioforce is going to be very scary.
It is going to be pretty scary, and he's also going to be throwing these Cloaked Banshees into the mix. Already had a couple of scans. Oh, actually, no, we had the initial scan inside the base of Bomber, and then we had the second scan to take out the 2 Widowmines, but I'm guessing he's really going to want to drop Mules on his next set, so I don't know if that will come into play in a major way, but we'll find out soon as these Marines are beginning to move up onto Taeja's base while that Banshee goes in for the back.
Banshee's coming around the back. A tank is moving up to the front as well. He can start sieging that bunker. And without defensive tank of his own, Taeja will be forced to try to break that siege tank contain. But the big story is how much damage can this Banshee done? It does have Cloak as well. Does Taeja have the scans to deal with this?
Let's see. He doesn't have any energy there. He does have enough energy over the main, but he's getting in position before he actually fires that off. And rightfully so, you do not want to waste the scan and let it get out of there. And it is going to get away. And that's exactly what Taeja didn't want to do. Oh, flies back in the scan zone. He does have another scan, but again, this is now going to be impacting the economy of Taeja because Mules have not been dropped as a result.
Yeah, it's also forced turrets, and any damage he can do to the Marines is going to make it much more expensive for Taeja to break the siege tank if Bomber does try to siege on that bunker through the front direction.
Finally did get that missile turret up, and that means that Banshee's going to have to stop its siege. Now 2 tanks at the front. Bomber's got another Banshee to accompany this, and I am so afraid with nothing in this bunker that Taeja is going to have a real hard time holding this off. At least he should be able to restrict Taeja into having to stay inside his main base. I imagine he's going to do a lot of damage here at the National.
Oh, another scan goes down, but a Banshee survives. The bunker goes down. So many Marines from Bomber, 2 tanks, Banshee supporting them. The missile turret keeps the Banshee from the mineral line, but the Marines are not worried about that at all. And Banshee gives the tanks a high ground vision. SCV's trying to come off, but Taeja is just getting mauled here. Yeah,
he is, and you know what? The initial attacks by Bomber and harassment might not have done a ton of damage, but it allowed Bomber to set up for this, which he knew was going to be his opportunity for a straight-up kill. These SCVs are following exactly what I said. It looks like, and there it is, GG. But Bomber pretty much puts himself in a position where he's not going to be, or where Taeja's not going to be able to defend that natural. And although he might have had some missteps in his harassment, that little, that kill move there was quite nice.
It was. The key thing there was the siege tanks. Taeja, it seems to me, and Heart of the Storm from what I've noticed, is that if you don't have siege tanks, those siege bushes are so deadly because they hit so much faster. And you can do things like Cloak Banshee and siege tanks. You couldn't do that early Wings of Liberty because you gotta spend the gas on the siege tank upgrade, and it just doesn't go all the different ways you can get to go. Really well-crafted build from Bomber there, and I think Taeja might have to change up his play to get out that maybe his own siege tanks defensively a little bit earlier next time.
Yeah, I think that would have made a big difference, especially based off where the position of Bomber's army was. That high ground is perfect for plopping that there. Banshees could have made a big difference there, but at least would have helped a little bit, maybe prevented him from getting in that offensive position. But we are going to be hopping into Game 2 on Newkirk City when we return. But first, a commercial break. So, guys, thanks for joining us here for the 2013 Went Back in Time MLG Winter Championship. Don't go away. We'll be right back.